How's it going, everyone? John Connon here with Neural DSP, and welcome to this deep dive of Cortex Control. This is our brand new app that allows you to control every aspect of Quad Cortex through your computer. So let's dive in. So I'm going to assume you have your Quad Cortex all set up and ready to go, and that you have the USB cable that came with the unit. Here on the overhead cam, you should see that this red USB cable is connected to the back of my Quad Cortex, and that's just going into my computer here. So once you've done that, download Cortex Control from neuraldsp.com and open up the app. So as you saw there, it doesn't take long to load up, and it syncs to the current state of your Quad Cortex in a few seconds, and you can see exactly what your Quad Cortex is displaying, but now on the computer monitor. So the plan in this is to essentially cover this from the top to bottom, starting off at the left, going through the grid, directory, some of the general presets of the application, and some other features here along the bottom. So starting at the top left of the devices, we have amplifiers, and as you can see, they're divided into guitar and bass. And what's really good about Cortex Control, by nature of having a mouse, you can scroll through all of these dead quick and just get around a lot quicker rather than scrolling manually on the unit. And one advantage of using Cortex Control is that when you're scrolling through devices, you can click any device on the list once, and you'll see it begins to flash on the grid as well. That means it's in audition mode, so you can hear how that would sound in the current preset, depending on where you've selected on the grid. So that's the Bogner Uber Clean, maybe the Brit 900 lead. Let's scroll down a bit, CA Duo Channel 3 Modern. And you can see there, that's making it really easy to just fly through all of these and make decisions a lot quicker. And you can do this with any device on the grid. So same thing with captures, maybe go through some factory captures. Let's just add a Bogner here. Something else at random. Let's fly through Brit 2555. You get the point. So that's a nice nifty feature about Cortex Control. Moving on to cabs, in a recent update in CorOS, we had the option to have stereo or mono cabs. So you can flip this little switch here and go between mono or stereo models for each of these cabinets, again, divided by guitar and bass. And say if you're having a good time scrolling through the cabs and you found one you really, really like, you've auditioned it, and you're happy with that, and you wanted to add it to the grid, all you need to do is double click it, and it will go from flashing to solid, and you'll see there it's in the place that you had selected on the grid. So now moving on to overdrives on the left, again, they're divided into guitar and bass, and I've taken off the overdrives of this first Brit 2203 preset to show that if you know that you really, really like a green 808 straight away, it's really easy, don't even need to audition it, click it, drag it to anywhere on the grid, and it's there. And again, double click it to turn it on, bypass it, same thing as you would on the QC. And you'll notice in the overhead cam, if I do that and bypass it, it does the same thing in Cortex Control, and vice versa. So without the overdrive, and with the overdrive, next, I want something a bit more aggressive, so let's try the new MK3 Silicon Fuzz. That's how it sounds replacing the green 808 in audition mode, but maybe I wanted to have it afterwards in the chain. So let's keep that as a green 808. Let's drag this fuzz after it and stack them. Okay, so on to delays. Let's add a delay in this space here. So let's click that space on the grid and now go to delays. Let's throw in an analog delay in stereo. Maybe audition simple delay. Slapback delay. tape delay. I think I like the analog delay as it was, so I'm going to keep it there. So this would be a good time to go through parameters on QC using this delay pedal. So we've got the analog delay in stereo, and if you've used a Quad Cortex, you'll recognize the parameters here. It's just the same as if you selected it on Quad Cortex, and you've got them all at the bottom of the screen. So let's bring the mix down a bit. Feedback, keep that where it is. High pass and low pass, I'm going to just take some of the low end out there, and you'll see in the overhead cam that's corresponding with Quad Cortex, and vice versa. If I raise the low pass frequency or lower it, it's going to do the same thing on Cortex Control. Ping pong, let's leave that on. Yeah, the time and modulation were all good. Second page of parameters. Let's turn the drive down, leave trails on, see how that sounds. Cool, I'm happy with that. And now let's go down to reverbs. So let's select the reverb. Currently it's on a room. I'm going to bypass by double clicking the delay just so we can hear this reverb a bit better. So it's a very quick and snappy reverb in nature, being a room. So maybe let's try ambience. It's a bit bigger, modulated. I like that one the most so far. Let's maybe try plate lush. I think let's go with that. So double click it, turn the mix down a bit, decay as well, just a bit, pre-delay, high pass and low pass, take some of the highs off. Actually, let's leave them in. Yeah, leave those the same. Mod depth, same with trails. Nice. And say if I wanted to save this and keep all this progress somewhere safe, at the top next to the preset name on the right, we've got Save As. So I'm going to select that, and then I'm going to put it into a new folder and create a set list. So I'm going to call this new folder New Tone Setlist. Click Create, and then in here, I'm just going to select 1A and call this First Tone. I can select whether it's for guitar, bass, synth, vocal, or other. In this case, it is a guitar preset, so let's call it First Tone and select Save. And there, that's in this second set list, the new tone set list, in bank 1, 1A. I'm going to click in the space next to this directory here and go back to the grid. However, if you wanted to go back in and tweak this preset, maybe with the plate reverb that I just created, I wanted to reset the parameters on that and start that process of the tone again, I can just reset to default by clicking these three dots at the top left of the device, and each of the devices have this. You can reset to defaults, and you see all of the parameters go back to where they originally were. But as you may have seen, when selecting a device, there were other options there when selecting these three dots. Aside from resetting the parameters to their default position, we can also assign expression pedals to any of these, as well as assign foot switches to them for stomp mode. So currently it's a foot switch H. If I wanted it to be assigned to foot switch D, I'd select that. I'd go into stomp mode. Again, you can do that from the QC or from Cortex Control. And you'll see now that this, when selecting it, is assigned to foot switch D. So you've got that functionality, as well as changing the bypass to a mute, or copying the device and pasting it when it's copied to the clipboard. So let's say I'm going to copy that and move these along. Say if I wanted two of these lush plate reverbs together, I could click that space on the grid and then simply Command V and it pastes it. So for now, I'm just going to revert back to the preset that I saved, click it in the directory, and it loads back up. And I hope this has given you some info on how to create a preset really easily within Cortex Control. And all of the practices that I've shown you here are applicable to all of the devices in Quad Cortex. And this will obviously apply for the compressors down here, the pitch devices, as well as the modulations. So next, I'm just going to revert back to the main factory preset, the first one in bank 1A, this Brit 2203. And now I'm going to talk about a few other elements on the grid. And you'll see next to the Save As button, we have more options. So selecting that, you can see Save here is Command S, just like it is on most applications on a computer. We've got another keyboard shortcut for Save As and Edit Details. And these are all just going to save you time and optimize your workflow a bit when creating presets. We've also got the option to show in the directory. So that will show you where this preset is. And it's showing me in the factory presets and flashing 1A. And it's showing that it's active as well. I'm going to get into the directory in a bit, so we're just going to leave that there for now and go back to the grid. And after that, we've also got add to favorites. We can add this to our favorite presets within Quad Cortex. We can delete the preset if it was one that we created. By default, you can't delete the factory presets in Quad Cortex. That's why that's grayed out. We've also got the option to create a new preset, Command N, as well as go into the preset MIDI out functionality if you were using that. I'm not for the time being, so I'm just going to cancel that. And also show gig view. So this, as you may have seen on the overhead cam, mirrors what Quad Cortex shows when you swipe up on the grid for gig view. And in gig view, if you've used Quad Cortex before, you'll know there are multiple gig views depending on what mode you're using Quad Cortex in. So currently we're in Stomp, and this shows you all of the devices in your current preset and the foot switch that they're assigned to, as well as showing the empty foot switches. You've got an option to delete any of these from foot switches and unassign them, but I liked how it was, so I'm just going to go on to the next preset, go back and refresh how it was. Above that, we've got scene mode, and again, you'll see them both correspond together. We've got all of the scenes and their names. We can also drag and drop, swap, hold option to replace. So let's maybe drag this to there to there, and you'll see how easy it is to do on Cortex Control. Above scene mode, we have preset mode. And again, that's just going to be mirrored as gig mode would be in preset mode on the Core Cortex. Next to gig view, at the top left here, we've got these three dots. And you can see modes configuration. That's where you can access hybrid mode, where you can combine preset, scene, and stomp in any combination you want. But for now, let's leave them as they are. We can reset to default there and select done. And below that, you'll see we can have visible on QC, click to hide. That refers to mirroring the gig view on Quad Cortex. Currently that's ticked with a nice little green tick here. If I select that, you'll see on Quad Cortex, it hides it, but we can bring it back and show on Quad Cortex for any of these modes if you want. So now I'm back on the grid. I can select those three dots and go back down to hide gig view or Command G. So whilst you're on a computer, let's do that. Command G. And gig view goes from Cortex Control as well as Quad Cortex. And you'll see next to these more options here with the three dots, we have yellow letters, and these are all going to correspond to scenes. So if we just bring gig view back up, Command G, you'll see that as I go through these, they're going to trigger the different scenes of the current preset. And next to that, at the top right, we've got our mode selection button. So selecting this, we're currently in scene mode. Then we're going to stomp and preset. So clicking through these, you can go through the different modes as well. But for now, I'm just going to close that. So now we're back on the grid, and I'm just going to select the input block on the far left. That's how you would get into accessing the input block's noise gate, just as you would hold it. Here, you're just going to click it once, and you can bypass that if you want by selecting the power button there. And again, here at the top left, you've got a little menu where you can assign it to an expression pedal if you wish. Similarly, with the output blocks, I'm just going to select the multi-out, and you've got the option to assign that to an expression pedal as well. But on top of that, you've got the normal volume, pan, mute, solo, and output level meter as you normally would. And as is the case with Quad Cortex, you can assign the volume, pan, mute, or solo functions to scenes by right-clicking them and selecting assign to scenes, and then assigning them to whatever scene you wish. If I exit that and select a blank input block, you can then choose from the standard I/O view screen which input you would want. And that's the same for the output blocks as well. The only thing left to show you is splitters and mixers. So as you'll see, if I hover over these white dots over the input blocks, a blue S appears. If you click that, this is going to open the splitter and mixer functionality. So I can just drag this blue node maybe in front of this amplifier. Same with the M, and there I could put another amp. So let's just drag this John's 2C, channel 2. And then we've got 2 amps in this splitter setup. And it's really that simple. So if I go back onto that by selecting either the S or the M, you'll see this is where we get to the splitter and mixer parameters. So in splitter, these are just going to be the same as they were in Quad Cortex. And you've got your different options of splitters and mixers here, selectable as well as all the standard functionalities that you get with splitters. With the mixers selected, you'll see we've got the levels, panning, phase as well for mixers, and the parameters there as well. So let's go back onto the grid. So now we're here in the directory, and before I go through all of these tabs on the left, it makes sense to go through these little icons at the top right. So we've got a master volume for Quad Cortex. That's going to correspond with whatever the master volume dial is on the physical unit. Next to that, we then have these 3 dots. And when you click that, we have the option to first do a new neural capture, and you can do that with Cortex Control. So let's select that and do a neural capture. If you've gone through the capture process before, it's going to be very familiar to you. It's going to have the on-screen instructions just like it does on the physical Quad Cortex unit. So here you'll be able to see from the overhead camera, we've got a pedal hooked up to the capture process, and it's important that you follow the on-screen instructions as normal. So for now, I'm just going to go through these step by step, making sure that everything is connected as it should be. So when you've gone through all those steps and everything's hooked up, you will be greeted with this screen. So this is going to be familiar as you've got all of your levels for your instrument, your target device, your auto gain, as well as the ground lifts and phantom power if you need those. But a relatively new feature as part of a recent Quad Cortex update is the cab sim. So when I select on, we're then greeted with this view of the impulse response, and we've got a cab, 2 microphones going, and we can change the panning, distance, position, level of each of these microphones just as you would in a normal cab block on the grid. So I'm currently capturing a pedal, as you can see. Without the cab sim, it would sound like this. With the cab sim, now here we're capturing a pedal, but if you were capturing an amplifier, this would be a lot more common practice to put an amplifier through an impulse response. But this is a really handy way of hearing how your capture is going to sound in the context of your grid patch, essentially. So it saves a bit of time, allows you to dial it in a bit better. Next, let's keep that on, check all of our settings are good, that we've got the right amount of gain. And nothing's clipping, and everything looks good to go. So I'm just going to go ahead and start the capture. And while this is taking place, you can use this short amount of time to fill in the metadata for this capture. So I'm going to name this capture pedal capture. The preferred instrument is a guitar, and the type of capture, it's a pedal. So I'm going to select pedal, and now I'm just going to wait for the capture process to finish, and then we'll move on. So now the capture is complete. I'm going to go ahead and select next. So here I can compare the Quad Cortex capture to the original reference. So here is the capture. Here is the reference. And I've got an option here to alternate between them after a couple of seconds. So here, Quad Cortex. Switching between the reference back to Quad Cortex and the reference, and sounds pretty good to me. So I'm going to leave that as it is. Cab sim, I'm keeping on. Again, you could have done that with the cab sim off, and I'm happy with all of that. So I'm going to go and save the neural capture. So there it would have saved to your captures in the directory, and we'll go onto that in just a second. So below the new neural capture in this drop-down menu, we've got undo and redo. Again, we've got corresponding keyboard shortcuts for those. And below that, we've got device settings. So opening this up, we've got the My Account section. So this is where you put in your account credentials for your Neural DSP account. So now we're signed in and we can edit our profile and link it from the Quad Cortex. But for now, I'm just going to leave that as it is. And below that, we have backups. We have the choice of creating either a cloud backup or a local backup. Previously, we've been able to make cloud backups from QC when it's connected to the internet. You simply create a backup of everything on your Quad Cortex, and that's saved to the cloud and your Neural DSP account. But now we can create a local backup onto the machine that you've got Cortex Control installed. So I'm going to go and select Create New. And it instantly saves everything on the Quad Cortex onto your computer with all the relevant detail on dates, times, etc. And after that's all backed up, you have the choice of searching for this and finding it in a directory on your computer. And that will then show you on your desktop computer whereabouts the file for the local backup is stored, as well as the metadata for that backup. Next to that, you can then choose to edit the name of this backup, update it if you wish, load that backup, or simply delete it. Moving on to connection. Up until now, you've had to connect your Quad Cortex to the internet in order to access your Neural DSP account and all of the cloud functionality. But with Cortex Control, your Quad Cortex can connect to the internet through your computer's Wi-Fi settings. So as you'll see here, under internet connection, it says Quad Cortex is using your computer's internet connection. So it's now not a necessity for you to sign in on the internet on your Quad Cortex if it's connected to Cortex Control as well. But however, you do have the option to reset your Quad Cortex Wi-Fi settings with this blue button that says reset as well. Moving down onto brightness. Here you can change the brightness of the screen, and that will change in real time, as you can see, as well as the brightness of the LED lights. Again, you've got an option to change it to defaults. Below that, you've got power functions here for shutdown, reboot, and standby. So you can do that as well through Cortex Control, as well as change the sensitivity of the power button. Below that, you've got lock Quad Cortex, and you can choose to lock or unlock Quad Cortex from Cortex Control as well. Below that, global bypass, and here you can globally bypass cabs or IR loaders on any row, and these will have a bypass icon, but won't appear bypassed on the grid. And you can choose that for any combination of rows for both cabs and impulse response loaders. Below that, we've got scene bypass state behavior, and as is the case with Quad Cortex, this is where you can choose the bypass behavior of blocks when in scene mode. Below this, we have preset and scene reload behavior, and this is essentially a refresh button for scenes or presets when you select those foot switches that they're assigned to. Next, we're onto stomp mode bypass assignment, and this is a handy feature because as you add blocks to the grid, it's going to automatically assign foot switches to them as you add them. Below that, we've then got MIDI settings, and here you can choose the Quad Cortex base MIDI channel, and there you've got a drop-down menu for that. You've got MIDI through, which is currently disabled, MIDI over USB, which you can choose as well, and also an option to ignore a duplicate PC when connected as well. Below that, you've then got disk space, showing you the available storage space on your Quad Cortex. Below that, there's an option to factory reset a unit if you wish. And finally, at the bottom, we've got a contact and about us, where you can get in touch with the support team at Neural DSP, as well as check out our forums if you have any technical questions, and you can also send a report with this blue button here. So that was all the device settings, and we're back up at this top right corner. We're going to have a look at I/O settings here. So this will mirror what you see on QC. When you swipe down on the grid, it's that same view, and here you've got access to all of your inputs and outputs and the various settings and gain settings as well. Phantom power, type of instrument, impedance, all of that good stuff, and that's all accessible there. And then below I/O settings, we've got modes configuration. And here we can choose to enable hybrid mode with 2 of the 3 modes, maybe scene and stomp, switch the order, just like before. And then at the bottom, we have help. So in here, we've got a list of keyboard shortcuts that can really optimize your workflow. And these really add up to save time. So we've got everything from grid, directory views, resize window. We've obviously got copy, paste, save as, next device model, previous device model. And you can really use the keyboard to make efficient moves and get stuff done really quickly. So they're all listed underneath the help. And then below keyboard shortcuts, we've got splitters and mixers, and that's going to give you a bit more detail and info on how those work and how they're routed. At the top right here, we've then got this little icon, and that relates to your Neural DSP account. We've got the amount of people you're following, as well as the number of followers that you have. And then settings here refers to the device settings that we've just covered. And then you've also got an unlink option if you want to unlink this Neural DSP account from your Quad Cortex. So now we're on the directory, and at the top left, we've got this search tab. So here we can search for any preset that we want. Let's look for the one I made earlier. First, there we go, first tone. And when we select that, it shows the set list that it's located in, the bank, as well as the actual preset. We can double click it. It shows that it's active. and the date that we made it. So that's a really helpful feature there. And then below that on neural captures, we can search for any captures we've made. So the one we made earlier was called pedal capture. And there it is, pedal capture. If we click it, it shows where it is. It's in my captures and all of the metadata along with it as well. Back to search. Underneath that, we then have impulse responses, and we're going to get to that in just a minute, where we show how you can load them with Cortex Control. And below that, we've then got the recents and favorites tab. So here we've got all of the recent presets that we've been using, as well as all of the relevant metadata along with them. Below that, we've then got favorites, where you can have a nice, quick, easy to access list of all of your favorite presets. And you can favorite a preset by clicking the heart icon next to it when in the directory. Below that, we've then got the presets tab. So this is going to look a lot like the directory on your Core Cortex. At the very top, we've got downloads. So this is where all of your downloaded presets are going to be shown that you download from the cloud. And then below that, cloud presets, that's where all of the cloud presets that you upload to the cloud are going to be shown. And below that, we've then got factory presets in the first set list. This is going to be always there. You can't delete factory presets. So this is always going to be the first set list that you come across. Below that, you've then got the presets on your unit. This one in the Neural Studio, we've got a few presets on here, and you can easily scroll through multiple banks really quickly. It's another advantage of using Cortex Control. And another advantage of using Cortex Control on top of that is that if you select a preset, Shift, you can change the location of multiple presets all at once. So maybe I want to drag all of these into the new tone set list. I can then choose where I want them to go. So maybe I want to put them in bank 2 of this new tone set list. In bank 2A, maybe I want to paste consecutively from the first chosen slot onwards, or paste consecutively from the first empty slot onwards. So what I'm going to do is paste consecutively from the first chosen slot onwards. I'm going to select 2A, and then they all get pasted like that. And when you go to bank 2, you'll see all of those presets have moved, and I've done that really, really quickly instead of doing them all individually like I would have had to do physically, but with Cortex Control, it can save you a lot of time. And of course, you've got the option to add new set lists. We could call this the third set list. And as is the case with all of the other set lists, you can scroll through the banks and the presets and get where you want to go really quickly. When selecting a preset, you can add it to the favorites by selecting that little love heart. You've also got 3 dots again, where you're going to open a drop-down menu, and you can open it on the grid, and there it just takes you to the grid with that preset. Go back to the directory. You've then also got the option to edit the details. You can upload it to the cloud, copy, paste it, delete it, do what you want to do. At the top, you've got the options to share this. Again, like it, copy it, edit the details, upload it to the cloud, and delete it. So there's multiple ways that you can do these types of functionalities, and whichever one works for you, that's the one to go for. And you can also drag presets around and swap them, change the order really easily just with a mouse, click and drag. And then finally, at the top, you can sort these either by banks, the name, the date the preset was added, the author of the preset, and the instrument that they're designed for as well. Below the presets tab, we're then onto neural captures. So at the top here, this is going to show where your downloaded neural captures appear. Again, going through the app on the Cortex Cloud, you can save all of these and they're going to appear right here. Below that, you've then got cloud captures. So this is going to be the captures that you've uploaded to the cloud. Below that, captures library. So here we've got our factory captures. These are all of the captures that come with your Quad Cortex, and scrolling through at quite a rate, you'll see there's a fair number of them. And these all come with their metadata, their gain rating of how saturated they are, the instrument they're designed for, as well as the type of capture. Below that, you've then got my captures. These are going to be the captures that you capture yourself with your Quad Cortex. So here we've got the pedal capture that we made a bit earlier, as well as a few others that are stored on this Quad Cortex. And when you found a capture, like the one we made earlier, you can right click it, you can edit the details, upload it to the cloud, delete it. But now let's open it on the grid and we can choose where to put it. Let's throw it right before the amp, and we've got it on the grid, ready to go. Below the captures tab, we've then got the impulse responses. And at the top here, we've got cloud IRs, and this is where you can drag and drop files and send impulse responses instantly to the cloud. Again, it's just a drag and drop. It's really, really easy. And then below that, impulse responses, this is going to be your impulse response library for your Quad Cortex. So just to demonstrate this, I'm going to get a folder of impulse responses, and I found the 3 that I want to add to my Quad Cortex. So I've highlighted them all, and I'm just going to drop them into Cortex Control. It's added all 3. I'm going to select close, and then here they are in the directory. And when you've added all of the impulse responses to Cortex Control, they're going to be automatically in your Quad Cortex as well. And I'll show you this now by going on the directory, down to the bottom, into my impulse response library, and those are the 3 impulse responses that I've just added. So as you can see, having the directory here on Cortex Control makes it really easy to navigate through all of your captures, impulse responses, presets, tones, etc., and just optimize your workflow generally, save a lot of time, and get back to making some music. So next, let's have a look at some global features. And at the bottom of the Cortex Control window here, at the bottom left, you'll see we've got a tuner. So clicking that will bring up the tuner, and the visuals are going to be very reminiscent of the physical Quad Cortex unit. And you have the options to change the input that you're tuning, as well as change it from cents to hertz for the values, unmute or mute the tuner, and also change the tuning in hertz as well. But there is also this option here, show live tuner in footer. So selecting that, you'll then see whenever I play, that the note is displayed at the bottom left, and you've got a real-time tuner there. So that saves you a bit of time loading up the tuner, tuning, and then closing it again. Next to that, we've then got the tempo. So this is where you can set the tempo settings either globally, per scene, or for the preset that you're on. And you can tap the tempo as well. You can raise it or lower it by increments, or change the tempo LED to come on or off, depending on whether you want that. So let's exit that, and you've got the tempo BPM there. You've got the tap function there as well. And then next to that at the bottom, we have MIDI here. So this refers to the MIDI out information when you're connected to external devices. And you can configure all of that here, as well as implement expression pedals if you want. I'm not doing that for now, so I'm just going to click done. Next to that, you've then got gig view, and we've covered this. Again, that's Command G, and that can go. Next to that, you've then got CPU. We're currently at 26% in this preset. And selecting this, you can then see which devices on the grid are taking up the most CPU. And this CPU refers to the CPU of Quad Cortex, not your computer. So after you've selected the CPU button, these icons will appear next to it. So selecting the first one will bring up the global EQ. And here you can set the parametric EQ for the whole unit, and you can turn this off or on at the top there. Let's select done, and then also see the I/O settings. So here, this is just like swiping down on the grid on Quad Cortex, and you've got access to all of the inputs, all the sends, expression pedal, USB, and all the other outputs and routing configurations that you would normally have on the physical unit. And here you've also got an option to turn the global EQ on or off as well. And then you can go into the global EQ by selecting the icon there. And then at the bottom right of the Cortex Control window, you'll see these 2 arrows. And clicking that will bring up the small, medium, or large window size selection. And that essentially covers it for all of the global settings of Cortex Control. So that covers it for this deep dive of Cortex Control, our fully integrated app that allows you to control every aspect of Quad Cortex from the convenience of your computer. For download links and further information, head on over to neuraldsp.com. I've been John Connon. Thanks for watching.